Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Maverick News Channel. A little bit of a glitch there off the top. We didn't get our intro to run, but we are here live. And I believe we're running on all channels. So thanks for coming back tonight because we have a lot of ground to cover. It looks like an ICBM, a Russian ICBM, has suffered a catastrophic failure during a launch earlier today. It has exploded. We'll show you what's happening with that. 2 Russian sanctioned tankers have strangely exploded. And I don't think Russia is too happy about that. We're also seeing that these peace negotiations, peace talks involving Ukraine, Russia, they are kind of going around in circles. And all that while this rhetoric from Donald Trump keeps heating up, where he's talking about just killing people. The administration still striking boats off Venezuela, and he's kind of under fire for striking these sort of authoritarian, imperialist types of phrases. So his rhetoric is generating more and more controversy, as he also says that he's going to undo all of the auto pen signatures and legislation decisions that Joe Biden came forth with. So all that's going to be nullified, apparently. We'll dig into it all when we come back on the other side of this.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
So is everyone enjoying the Black Friday sales today? Not me. I'm not spending any money because I have no money to spend. The best way to save money is not to spend it. Where should we begin tonight? It's just been a strange week, and everything right now feels extremely strange. The United States doesn't feel right to me, especially, and I think that's why everything feels strange. Everything Trump is doing is outside the box, at least for me, from anything I've ever seen coming from the United States in my lifetime. Here, case in point, look at this. Trump escalates long-running attack on Biden auto pen use and claims he's canceling actions signed with it. This has been an ongoing talking point. Now he's ramping it up, saying that, well, right here, U.S. President Donald Trump Friday continued his effort to delegitimize actions taken during Joe Biden's presidency. He says he's canceling all executive orders and anything else that was not directly signed by Biden. So anything signed with the auto pen, I guess he is undoing it. Let's go over to the Truth Social page, and we'll do it right off the top tonight. We'll do the Truth Social scroll. We'll do the Trump. Let's take a look and see exactly what Donald Trump is saying tonight. we'll find that. We'll find the post there with regard to that. And here we go. Right up here. If Tito Asfura wins for president of Honduras because the United States has so much confidence in him, his policies, and what he will do for the great people of Honduras, we will be very supportive. If he doesn't win, the United States will not be throwing good money after bad, because a wrong leader can only bring catastrophic results to a country, no matter which country it is. Now, you see, this post really just slides right into what I am really focusing on tonight, and that is that, in the view of many, Donald Trump is an imperialist. This is an imperialist presidency. It's something we really haven't seen. Again, in my lifetime, I don't know about yours, but the United States is engaged in, right now, I would say, imperialism. And while he says he's the president of peace, there's a lot of evidence to suggest quite the opposite. In fact, I would say, I'm not going to just say it, I'm going to say that there is, that some out there are saying President Trump has become something of a warlord, if not an imperialist. It has gone that far. And there he is posting about Honduras again. And the reason I'm saying these things is because this is how Trump and his administration views the Western Hemisphere, North America. This is basically their sphere of domination. It is a form of colonialism or imperialism. That's how he views Venezuela, in their view, because in his view, and it's quite evident, he sees these countries, or like all these smaller countries or weaker countries, as countries that he gets to influence. They're sort of like satellite states, or states that he gets to dictate who's in power, in the exact same way that Putin views the states, the countries around him, or at least certainly under the former Soviet Union, that was the case. And certainly that seems to be the case with Ukraine. That's why we're getting all of the saber rattling down in Latin America, off the coast of Venezuela. That's why we're getting the 51st state talk. That's why we're getting the positioning against Greenland. I keep talking about this. People need to become aware. And so he sticks his nose into everybody's business politically in this part of the world, while saying he doesn't want to get the United States involved in any more forever wars. But in fact, he is kind of going to war without going to war. We'll come back to that because that's a key part of this whole thing. And it also is a key component in the video that went viral with Mark Kelly and others, politicians, saying or telling members of the U.S. military that they are not just, they not only should, but they are obligated to not follow illegal orders. That coming to a head tonight against the Trump administration, against Donald Trump himself, against Pete Hegseth, with regard to these latest strikes off the coast of Venezuela, where we've seen now more than 80 people killed. And some people are livid because they see that what he is doing may indeed very well be unlawful, illegal. Trump, here it shows right here, and this is the in the Independent. Survivors on narco boat targeted by Trump order were blown apart after Hegseth verbal command to kill everybody. And you may recall, I said I had that up last night, where we showed Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth reportedly giving a verbal order to leave no survivors behind as Donald Trump's administration, it says right here, launched the first of more than a dozen attacks on alleged drug running boats that have killed more than 80 people over the last 3 months. So on September 2nd, U.S. military personnel fired a missile striking a vessel in the Caribbean. They carried 11 people accused of trafficking drugs into the United States. When 2 survivors emerged from the wreckage, a special operations commander overseeing the attack ordered a second strike to comply with Hegseth's instructions to kill everybody. This coming out in the Washington Post, who have cited officials with direct knowledge of the operation. That's a problem. If this is accurate, it's a very big problem. Because this news of the alleged command follows legal scrutiny from international investigators and members of Congress alleging that Trump's deadly campaign really amounts to illegal extrajudicial killings, which law of war experts, some are labeling as outright murder and a war crime. And this is honestly, folks, why the UK, some other traditional, longtime U.S. allies are now not sharing all intelligence with the United States, in particular, intelligence that may be related to what is going on off the coast of Venezuela and maybe soon on the ground in Venezuela, and indeed even on the ground now in Venezuela, because Trump has indicated, he has said that the CIA is in there right now, engaged in covert operations. Although I don't know how covert they can be when you publicly state it. Here's Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt.
Entering a new phase in Venezuela, and what does that entail? Well, as the president is so good at, I'll try to be just as...
One more time. It's not acting properly. Hang on. Here we go.
I know I've been very clear.
Meet Shock CryoGlow, the new Med Spa inspired mask with under eye cooling.
It's not gonna
IQ LED technology uses high.
Well, as the
Okay, we're not going to do it. It's no clip anyway. It just wants to run commercials all night. So enough of that. Let me take a break. Everything's falling apart technically, but I'll fix it and we'll come back.
Maverick News. The world is watching. Maverick News. Fighting for freedom.
Okay, let's see if we can get this going here. We got, now see, as I'm talking about this, The Pentagon is now denying that Hegseth ordered or issued the kill everybody order, even as these alleged or suspected narco-terrorists, as the Trump administration, as Hegseth keeps alleging, as they're going forward with these executions. Here's the video. And they blurred some stuff out here. You know, these are the videos that we're seeing. This is the only real evidence that we have been given. We don't have names. We don't have suspects in custody. The ones that have been taken into custody weren't even Venezuelan. And then they were sent back to other countries and were not taken to the United States to stand trial. This is all problematic because, see, if this happened the way that it appears it may have happened, you've got survivors and then they're in the water. And if that's the case, then under the terms of the Geneva Convention and Geneva laws, then they should not be subject to further aggressive action. And so if this order was issued, it's illegal because it's basically, it would be ordering a war crime. And that is a violation of not only international law, but even US law. And it's if that's the way it went down, then this basically makes the United States no better than, or at least the Trump administration and the military under Pete Hegseth, no better than a rogue dictatorship, a banana republic that subjects people to oppression and authoritarian rule that just goes around killing people. And in fact, that's what we've seen from Trump. Like his exact words, like he said it just the other day. I'll bring you the clip again. This blew my mind when he just said it like this, because in order to go to war, you need congressional approval. So he says they're just not going to declare war. They're just going to kill people.
And Mr. President, if you are declaring war against these cartels and Congress is likely to approve of that process, why not just ask for a declaration of war?
Well, I don't think we're going to necessarily ask for a declaration of war. I think we're just going to kill people that are bringing drugs into our country. Okay? We're going to kill them. You know, they're going to be like dead. Okay? Yeah.
And Mr. President,
that was, how long was that? That was a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks ago. I can't remember the exact date on that. Yeah, that was back in October. Back in October. Wow, that was like a month ago. Yeah, he was saying, and here this is what we've been seeing. And then you see the rhetoric too about hanging his political opponents. You know, the whole lock her up thing. That was, I would say, was hyperbolic. But now the tone has taken on a more serious tone. It's much more serious. Let's just take a look. Some people think it's funny. Some people are still thinking it's just rhetoric. It's just hyperbole. But it doesn't. I don't think so. They're literally killing people. They're just pulling the trigger. No due process. Here's somebody posting, Trump shock repost, hang Dems. I don't know if that's authentic. It says, if you think he's kidding, a reminder that he's been illegally killing people in the Caribbean and Eastern Pacific for going on 3 months and been joking about it the entire time. Here's a HuffPost article. Hang them. Trump boosts message calling for executing Democrats in Congress. Right. That's right. So that is true. That is what was said. Let's bring it up. Got to switch pages here for you. I don't know. This is, I don't know how he gets away with this kind of rhetoric. If this was coming from any other president at any other time, I don't think people would stand for it, but he's just so bombastic in his style, and he has said such outrageous things consistently that it just seems that he just gets away with it. People are like, oh yeah, well, that's just Donald Trump. Here's the headline. Did I lose it? I believe so. Sorry, folks, the computer is going crazy tonight. It's not able to keep up. Just moving too fast. All right, I need another break so I can let it catch up. Hang on.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay. We also have something special lined up for you tonight for Maverick Midnight Matinee. Zagazimov. We've got something from him to share with you. But first, tonight, well, not first, but next, the seeing this pipeline memorandum of understanding signed yesterday has really, it's driven a wedge in on the conservative side. I've noticed a wedge in between all, some of the conservative streamers. Some are saying that this is a big win for Alberta. And then there are others who are saying that the pipeline deal isn't a deal at all and is going to destroy Canada. It's like extremes in the analysis and the commentary. Here's Brian Lilly from The Sun. He's come down on the side of this is a good thing for Alberta and a big win for Danielle Smith. Let's show you here. Here we go. He says there's a lot of skepticism out there about the Carney Smith deal, but he says that he thinks Smith got a good deal for Alberta, and she thinks so too. And he's confident or believes that we will see actual progress on this file within the year. So Toronto Sun conservative journalist.
Within a year, we will be seeing real progress on this. That is my hope. This is a win for Danielle Smith. David Eby might be really upset, but he's a member of what former NDP Premier of British Columbia, John Horgan, used to call the Mud Hut Brigade wing of the NDP. And nobody wants to live in a mud hut other than perhaps David Eby.
So that's...
Within a year,
Brian Lilly's. Let's do a little scroll here and see what else we're getting on that front. I have seen a lot of, pretty negative stuff coming from the conservative side on it. And even yesterday, in the House of Commons with Pierre Poilievre his comments too were like, well, it's not really a deal. It's, I would say, I think Carney for the second time has stolen Pierre Poilievre's thunder. He did it during the election in a couple of ways, actually. So maybe the third time he's done it. First, he stole Pierre Poilievre's thunder by axing the tax. You had the Conservatives, their whole platform, their whole campaign was centered around axe the tax, axe the tax, axe the tax. So Carney comes in and axes the tax, reduces the price of gasoline, and just takes the wind out of the Conservative campaign sales. So there's that. Then also, Carney took the patriotic nationalist track by, honestly, with the elbows up campaign, defending Canada, defending the Canadian sovereignty in the face of the threat of Trump's tariffs. And I don't think that gave the Conservatives much room to maneuver either. So they were like, well, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Elbows up. How stupid is that? It sounded very anti-Canadian, and their whole message, their whole campaign was very, very negative. That hurt them. So they were outplayed, outmaneuvered during the election. And now this. Now you have Carney coming along saying, okay, I'm going out to Alberta, and he sits down and signs this MOU with Danielle Smith, the premier, yesterday. And the Conservatives, who have been calling for a pipeline deal, they're left standing there with their rhetoric in their hands saying, well, it's not really a deal. And that may well be the case, but the optics on it favor the Liberals and favor Carney right now. So once again, he has stolen Pierre Poilievre's thunder, because all Poilievre can do is sit there and say, well, it's not a real deal. Meanwhile, they're holding up the deal. It's an MOU, so it's not a finalized deal. There are still some things to be done. But then in the House yesterday, Poilievre also stood up and pointed out that new legislation brought in by Carney gives the federal government additional leverage to exercise its authority as the national sovereign, as the national authority. The government has the authority to push pipelines through interprovincially. And this new law that was passed really hammers or reinforces that authority with the federal government. And Poilievre stood in the House of Commons yesterday and says, well, will Mark Carney do it? I'll tell you, he will. I think he absolutely will. That's why they put that reinforced legislation in place. And the Supreme Court of Canada has indicated and has ruled that that's the case anyway. But what Carney is doing, honestly, is he is taking this road of cooperation and conciliation. He's walking down that road as he's trying to get this pipeline done, this pipeline deal. And he's doing that because he knows that because of the way Canada is set up, if he doesn't, we'll end up with decades, generations, maybe never-ending conflict between First Nations, between provinces, between the federal government over whether this pipeline is legal, not legal, if there was proper consultation done to conform with other legislation through now the UNDRIP provisions, where First Nations have to be consulted, and UNDRIP is integrated into our law for First Nations. And he knows that if he doesn't take this path, then it will result likely in generations of litigation, disputes, political turmoil, and even national fractures that could continue to try to threaten the unity of the country and maybe even the future of Canada down the road again. And we're facing enough of that kind of turmoil right now. Would Poilievre do that? Maybe. Quite often when these politicians stand up and they're in opposition, they have no choice but to simply be opposed to what government is doing. But once they get in, they end up doing the same things anyway. And I'm not saying Poilievre wouldn't do a good job, but I get the sense he would just ram it through and not engage in the consultations and the negotiations at each of these steps in order to appease people, to prevent and to get agreements in place so that it would prevent possible legal challenges down the road. It sounds like he would just jam it through. And I don't think that in Canada that would necessarily be the best thing in the long run. It would be better to have everybody involved, all the stakeholders agreeing on this. And that's really where, again, Carney has, I think, stolen Poilievre's thunder and may, well, again, down the road in the near future, if Brian Lilly is right and we do see progress on this in the next year, then Carney will again upstage Poilievre, and you'll see the Liberals go back to the polls, to the voters, and I think you'll see another Liberal government after that, because this is the key issue, the pipeline issue, especially as we face this pending referendum, this vote on the future of whether Alberta will remain as a province within Canada or in a revised form, as some sort of independent nation within a nation, or will it be swallowed up as the 51st state? And there's a lot of foreign influence going on out there too, with especially the U.S. and MAGA, as you know, what my views on that are, which I think is entirely inappropriate, but possibly even illegal. Yeah, probably. But that's for the lawyers to decide and the judges. So I've said, this is not Trudeau 2.0. This is Mark Carney 1.0. I've been telling everybody he's more conservative on especially fiscal, economic things. He's more pragmatic than Pierre Poilievre. The label is the label. He's wearing the liberal L on his on his lapel, but he is in many respects more conservative than Poilievre is. And I think he's far more strategic. He's outmaneuvered Poilievre on this, and you can have your heads blow up out there all you want, but it's just right there. It's evident. And the Conservatives right now, they're not in good shape because Poilievre's still trailing Carney in public opinion polls. He's way behind. He's not popular. And if we went back to the polls today, the Liberals would win again because the voters, the public, according to the polls, favor Carney as the leader. You're just going to have to figure something out. And I think it's this weekend, isn't it, that Danielle Smith also has her annual general meeting for the United Conservative Party. So we'll have to keep an eye on that too and see where that all goes. The Conservatives are grasping. They're trying to find something that they can latch onto here to gain traction against the Liberals. Now, there's this thing, if I can find it. I do want to show you this. I want to comment on it because it is really off the rails. It's not accurate. Lost the tab in all of our technical crap. Here we go. You must have been hearing about the Liberal server, which is in the United States, the computer server for their Twitter account. Because over on X, Twitter, they're now posting, or they're making it public, showing where servers are located or accounts are located. And it has indicated that the Liberal Party servers in the United States that may well be the case. It may not be the case as well. It probably is the case, but it might not be, because sometimes VPNs are used and it makes things appear to be where they're not. I don't know. It is not really clear. The Liberal Party itself has not disclosed the actual location of its server. I think it's for their website. But this is generating some response on social media from influencers, and some of them are, I think, kind of getting it just a little bit not correct. So I'm going to run this clip, and then I'm going to point out why really this is not quite accurate. Okay, let's bring this one up. This one? Nope. Nope. Where is it? I'm going to bring it up again. Here we go. Put you on the screen. What's this guy's name? This is Robin Hillier, I guess his name is. I don't really know him.
Has championed some of the... Well, this is rich. The Canadian Liberal government has championed some of the strongest online regulation policies in Canadian history, including the Online Streaming Act, Bill C-11, Online News Act, Bill C-18, and proposed online harms legislation. These measures create strict expectations for online digital platforms, publishers, and political advisors. However, the Liberals' official X account, Twitter account, is registered and administered in the United States, placing it outside of Canadian regulation, much like when they moved Brookfield headquarters from Canada to New York. This provides complete avoidance of Canadian digital regulations that they put in place, loopholes in political advertising restrictions, shielding from CRTC oversight, flexibility in data collection and targeting, literally stronger speech protection through the United States, and reduced exposure to Canadian auditing. The account becomes harder for Elections Canada to audit, subpoena, or fine. So the Liberal Party, who championed strict digital regulations in Canada, moved their primary account to the United States so they can avoid the very same rules they're shoving down your throat. Well, this is rich.
Yeah, not quite true. Let me get rid of this phone call. There he's gone. I need to turn that off. Okay. This is not really accurate. You don't need to like the legislation. There are a lot of problems with it. But what he's saying is not true. You see, and the reason that it's not accurate and not true is because it doesn't really matter where that server is. They are subject to the same laws, because what's on the server is not really the issue. It's what is broadcast or distributed online. And anything that would fall under any of that legislation is dependent on what is released or published online, either through the website, which you can see and can be recorded through screenshots, video recordings, audio recordings, tracked digitally. It's what's published on a website or on social media or any other way online. And if it's published, then it becomes an issue when you're talking about an issue of censorship or regulation on content. If it's just content that's sitting on a server and isn't published, then it really isn't an issue, is it? But if it's published, then it becomes an issue. And what is there's no secrecy if what is under scrutiny is the content that is published. If it's never published, then it's not an issue. It's like if you make a commercial that falls outside the legality of Elections Canada, and you don't publish it, you don't promote it online, you don't put it up on Facebook or Twitter or up on your website, then you didn't publish it, so it's not an issue. It can be on a server anywhere in the world, but if you don't put it out, it's not an issue. But if you do put it out, now it's an issue. But it doesn't matter where it comes from in the world. What matters is, was it directed at a Canadian audience? Was it published here in a way that people here get to see it? And those social media accounts for the Liberal Party or any political party are here and are aimed at a Canadian audience. It doesn't matter if they put a VPN up and they route the content halfway around the world and back, or all the way around the world and back. It's whether it's reaching your eyeballs and your ears and mine. That's when the content then can become an issue. And they are subject to all of those laws. All parties are. You are, I am. The political parties are all subject to the same laws. It doesn't matter where the website is hosted. It's whether the website is up. And the party is here. The messaging is coming from here. They're the party publishing it. And so that's how it works. And you don't even need to subpoena the server to prove what has happened, because you've got the Wayback Machine. There are lots of ways you can go back and find the content. The stuff is recorded regularly. Believe me, there's lots of scrutiny on political parties. So anything of that would be a problem would be recorded, or could be recorded or recalled anyway on the internet itself. And it's what's put out publicly that would be the issue. So this whole argument, it doesn't really hold water. It's a red herring. It's meant to drag you over here and convince you of something, but it's not really the heart of the issue. What I'm conveying to you is it sounds like it's true, but it isn't true. And this is just the play that is made by a lot of online streamers right now, because this is like clickbait stuff, and it gets people really upset with information that is really misleading. So I guess it would fall under I hate to use the phrase, but misinformation in itself. But I think we need to focus on what is accurate, and that's how you get to a better place. If you just, this is not what's going on. They didn't put it on a server over there to hide it. The other truth of the matter is the Liberal Party might not even know that it's on a server in the United States. Because I can tell you right now, I make websites as part of my business so that I can actually eat. But when I'm publishing, or when I have server space, or I dedicate server space to a website for a client, I often don't know where that server is. I have no idea a lot of the time. I'm assuming it's in the United States, but a lot of these servers are in places like China, and you just don't know. And so you don't know unless you really check and dig in, and you make sure that if you're leasing server space from a company like Amazon, it's probably not in Canada. It's probably in the US. It could be in Mexico. Could be in China. And there are the big companies that have like servers and provide server space to a lot of different companies. Like, that's why Parler, when Dan Bongino was actively involved with it, that's why that company, that social media platform, they were able to take it down and take it offline when the Democrats were involved in a lot of online censorship. And they went after Parler, if you may recall, and attacked it, and they were able to get it taken down because it was Amazon servers, and they said, that's it, we're not going to host it here anymore, and they took the whole platform down, leaving them very vulnerable. But I don't even know where those servers are. I think they're in the US. I can check. Let's just find out. Now, it appears the Conservative Party has their server in Canada. But the point that I'm just making is that any of these parties, it doesn't matter if their server is in Canada or halfway around the world, they're subject to the laws, and there's no way they're getting off the hook. It may make it, if they needed to subpoena the the servers, it could make it more difficult to enforce that because it's out of country. But any political party that would refuse to turn it over would face huge political backlash anyway if it came down to some sort of a scandal. We're not turning it over because it's in the United States. Of course they're going to turn it over. Otherwise, people would just burn the party at the stake and all the politicians as well. Where are Amazon's servers located? And I should have you the answer in a moment. So some are in Canada with Amazon. Some are in the United States, in California, Ohio, North Virginia. Some are in South America. Some are in Europe. Some are in the Middle East. Some are in Africa. Here, I'll show you. This is why you don't know. You see, I don't lease my server space from Amazon, but I won't tell you where I lease it, lest they get attacked. But here's the list. All you have to do is, I just did a quick AI search to find out, and it gives you the list. Here you go. So when you're leasing space, they can bounce you around all over the place, wherever they have the most space. Just because you're in the United States doesn't mean you get your server space there. I'm not sitting here trying to make excuses for the Liberal government. I'm just pointing out accurate, like, facts. Because I keep hearing this kind of stuff and it's just not accurate. You should know so that you have the right information. Look, South America, they have servers in Europe, the Middle East, Asia Pacific, Tokyo, Sydney, Mumbai, Jakarta, Melbourne, China, all over the place. Switzerland. So they're not, it's just not, these are not, that's the other thing. These are not just US companies. These are multinationals. And this America First, Donald Trump and his tariffs, he's dealing with all these companies, all these big corporations. They're all multinationals all over the world. And in particular, especially digital companies like Amazon and GoDaddy and you name it. They have server space all over the place. Do with it what you will. You don't like the information? Whatever. It's just the truth. More truth. And this is actually bad for Ukraine because they've got this ongoing scandal. And I know that it was maybe 2-3 months ago, I think, they actually searched Zelensky's home because of this corruption scandal involving funding for energy infrastructure projects. I've mentioned it here on the program. So nothing's happened to him because I don't think they found anything on Zelensky directly, but there's some people very close to him who look like they're implicated. Here's more on that with Zelensky at the heart of U.S. peace talks. A top Zelensky aide has resigned after being implicated in corruption probe. And this is Andrei Yermak, and his home was searched today by investigators probing this alleged $100 million kickback scheme. So that's not good. And Russia, of course, is using that as an opportunity to hammer at the administration there. But as I mentioned, it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't, because in order to get integration and membership in the European Union for trading, not for defense, the Ukraine government has been told you have to clean up the corruption in your country. And so they're doing that. And then this kind of boiled over and erupted, and it's huge money. And while it seems to be, pretty isolated to like domestic stuff, like internally, of course, people are concerned about, well, where's all my money going? Where's all the money that we've been giving to Ukraine for defense? And here's $100 million that is in question. And so that is sending shockwaves through the country of Ukraine and externally, internationally, as these peace talks unfold, and they're not looking good really all the way around, because this 28-point plan, it's actually made things worse in a lot of ways all the way around, because there is evidence to suggest that this thing was actually written in Moscow, the peace plan, the 28-point plan, and then was translated to English. The translation it doesn't look like it was the best, which kind of revealed that this was the Russian plan with a little bit of US tweaking. And now it's down to a 19-point plan, but it looks like Russia's rejecting it because it has come back with revisions that Russia's just saying they're not acceptable. And it doesn't look like they're going to accept it on the Russian side at all. So it's just, as I said the other night, I think it's just going to continue this war for the moment. But it's also showing that the Trump administration, Trump himself, J.D. Vance in particular, and Witkoff, not supportive at all, not friends of Ukraine. But even if the U.S. withdraws its support, you mark my words there, this is not going to end. Not going to end, because it is not just about NATO expansionism. This really is about the people of Ukraine fighting for their sovereignty and their culture, because they know that if they lose this, things are going to go very badly for a lot of people there. Here's more on the scandal. This is, I believe this is Sky News. Yeah. Let's bring this up. Here we go.
Extraordinary development, and it's only just emerged in the last few minutes. But since this morning, when anti-corruption officials raided the home of Andriy Yermak, there has been an expectation of some kind of movement on this. How can the president's right-hand man, his chief of staff, be touched in whatever way by this this corruption probe that has dominated headlines here in Ukraine for the last few weeks, without President Zelensky taking some kind of step? In the end, the president didn't have to. He has actually released his nightly video in which he revealed that Andriy Yermak has submitted his resignation. There's no suggestion of wrongdoing yet in terms of allegations directly towards him, but clearly this does not look good, having anti-corruption officials at his home. Yermak earlier in the day said that he was cooperating fully with the investigation. There was no comment on exactly what the investigators were searching for at his property, but this all comes on the back of Ukraine's two main anti-corruption agencies launching an investigation into a plot linked to the State Atomic Energy Agency about contracts worth $100 million through kickbacks and laundered money. You've already had the senior businessman, who's also a friend of the president, who's actually fled the country. He's alleged to be the ringleader of this plot. You've had the resignation of two other ministers too, and now the most significant event of all, Andriy Yermak going. And just to remind people of who this person is, he is widely regarded. He is seen as the second most powerful person in this country. Ever since Russia's full-scale invasion, he has been at the side of the president. He is the man who has been leading negotiations with the Americans around all these sort of attempts at peace talks with Russia. We saw him just last week in Geneva, where he was leading the Ukrainian delegation there with the US Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. So it is a huge blow to the president and his authority that he is losing this man. But actually, if you speak to anti-corruption activists, they will all be applauding the fact that that Yermak has stepped down.
Yeah, it's, that's the other point to balance this all out is they're rooting it out and they're dealing with it. And so the anti-corruption people are saying this is a good thing, even though it's a bad thing. So you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. There it is. Let's take a break.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarmingly, some media publish things that simply aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think, and this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
In an ocean of lies a century deep, the truth awaits. Choose not the red pill. Choose not the blue pill. For both are an illusion. Discover the power of M. The power of individuality. We are mavericks, we are the way to the light. Fear not the storm. Join our quest for truth. Truth will set you free. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Yeah, so hopefully people responsible or involved in that corruption are held accountable and pay a price for the theft that they're involved with. Here you go. Now, as I say, Russia making the most of that. Here's RT. There's the story. Zelensky's right-hand man has quit. Who is Andrei Yermak and what does his exit mean? So they're focusing on the story heavily. Zelensky's top aide resigns amid corruption probe. Second story about it. Kremlin weighs in on corruption probe into Zelensky's right-hand man. There you go. And so damaging to Ukraine, positive for the Russian side, but not so positive to see this story for Russia. 2 sanctioned tankers hit by explosions. Turkey. Let's take a look at this closer. I mentioned this off the top of the program. 2 tankers sanctioned by the West, damaged by explosions in the Black Sea today. One is the Kairos, a Gambian-flagged vessel bound for Russia's port of Novorossiysk. Caught fire 28 nautical miles off Turkey's coast due to unspecified external factors. Whatever that means, I guess it means what? Struck by some sort of munition? So this footage was released. It shows that these vessels were engulfed in flames. Second vessel is the Gambian flagged tanker Virat. It was hit 35 nautical miles off the Turkish coast. Media say the ship communicated that it was attacked by drones. So that would definitely be an external explosion. Not looking good. And that's not the only downside. Today for Russia, we also see that this ICBM exploded. What we have here is a Russian intercontinental ballistic missile. It suffered a catastrophic failure today during launch from the Yasny missile range. This is near Orenburg in southern Russia. And so this happened only seconds after launch, and the missile, it looked like it flipped upside down in midair and then partially self-destructed, and then the remainder of the missile crashed to the ground, spreading clouds into the sky, spewing smoke and spitting fuel everywhere. This is near the border with Kazakhstan. You have video here. Let's take a look. Here we go. It goes up. You can see it there, I hope. Went completely wrong.
Что за... А, нихуя, я думал, вниз полетит. Да это...
Да, пизда.
В натуре?
Да, ты чё, она падает уже, все.
Ебать.
Держись,
Да ну нахуй. Ебать. Бля, держите меня, я снимаю. Да ну нахуй, бля.
Что, упала? Да. Упала.
Бах.
Машину, защиту, бегом!
And there's a still image of the effluent. Oh. That one is a gonzo. Okay. Another short break. Got a little bit more. And don't worry, Isaac Asimov is coming up at the end of the program.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals. Defenders of individual rights and freedoms. Credible. Trusted. Grounded in reality. Maverick News. Maverick News. Defending free speech. Free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Too late. Too late. Too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
So as I spoke earlier tonight about this Trump administration being imperialist, I stand by that with the way things are going. This is also why things just don't feel right. I don't know if you sense it. Do you feel sort of the weight on your shoulders all the time? It was lifting for a while, and then Trump got reelected, and then there it was again, and it's heavier and heavier and heavier. Things seem unnatural, out of sorts. Things are not right. And as I look at what's going on around us, with everything goes back to him, it's not the United States that I've really thought I knew. This doesn't seem like the United States to me anymore. This seems like something different. It's an aberration. It's because Trump is taking the United States in a completely different direction, a direction that's off in left field compared to what the United States has been, what everyone has trusted the United States to be since World War II. Because after World War II, the United States became the most powerful country in the world because it had nuclear weapons. And we trusted the United States. All of the other countries in the West trusted the United States to be the keeper of the peace, to be the protector. They were given that task, trusted with it, trusted with the nuclear weapons. trusted to build up their military so that other countries would not have to prevent the proliferation of nuclear weapons, so that other countries didn't need to acquire them because the US had them. That's one of the reasons NATO was formed. But what is happening now runs contrary to that, because this runs in alignment with the world view and the world objectives outlined, promoted within Russia by Duginism, which is to carve the world up into spheres of dominance by the major powers, ignoring essentially the sovereignty of smaller satellite states around the major powers. And each of those powers then basically get to dictate what governments are in place in those smaller countries, who they get to trade with, whether they even get to have a military or any kind of defense at all, and whether they even are truly even sovereign anymore. And I would say that the way Donald Trump views the West and North America now is that it's all his. Hence, Gulf of America, not Gulf of Mexico. This is ours. He just states it. Therefore, it is. He just took it. Just takes it. I've been warning for a long time that if we take this path, which is the path that is laid out in Duginism, that is Neo-Eurasianism, that is required reading by the Russian military, it is the philosophy of Alexander Dugin, Putin's brain, and it is this philosophy and ideology that Steve Bannon is familiar with and I think largely subscribes to, and many people within MAGA, key people, and I think even Donald Trump himself. And they look at it through the lens of America first. Putin looks at it through the lens of Russia first. Xi Jinping, China first. And they have this sort of little agreement. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, nod, nod. I'll stay out of your backyard. You stay out of mine. But they don't. And all of these smaller nation states, even countries like the UK, Australia, New Zealand, France, Poland, all of these countries, Canada, we were all now forced through coercion, economic warfare, to fall into line, to just do the bidding of Donald Trump. And as you've seen just tonight with reference to another country where he's saying, yeah, I like this guy, but I don't like that guy. And if you elect that guy, then I'm going to sanction you, or I'm going to impose tariffs on you just because I don't like the politics. And we kind of saw that up here in Canada as well during our election, where he sort of weighed in. And I don't know if he really got the outcome that he really wanted, but I think maybe he did. I don't know. But he's meddling and even throwing money at this up here in our country, which is foreign interference. But in his mind, they're justified in doing whatever they want to do because they're the United States and they're the big power. They have the nukes. They have the largest military in the world, maybe one of. And so Venezuela has to do what the United States says. Mexico has to do what it says. And he's even said, just come out and said that Canada does whatever I tell them to do. And so you're getting pushback. But because he's taking this position, because this is the new world order that is taking shape, where they're bringing together all these countries in these geographic blocks, it's leading to conflict. It will inevitably lead to more war. So this is not a president of peace. This is a president of conflict. Even though you could take the view that all you have to do to get world peace is to get these big powers all in alignment and agreeing that they're going to stay out of each other's backyards, you'll prevent World War III. You'll prevent nuclear war. On the contrary, because you already have other countries with nuclear weapons like North Korea, potentially Iran, Israel, very likely. Yeah, pretty certain. There are other countries out there. The UK has nuclear subs. And other countries now will see that they need to get a nuclear weapon if they want a seat at the big boys' table in order to protect their sovereignty, their countries, the existence of their countries, because it's the only way that you have enough leverage, maybe, in order to make sure that you can survive against a superpower, is to be a superpower. And to be a superpower, you need nukes. But that's only because the United States, under Donald Trump, and because of Russia, and even Xi Jinping and China, because these guys are taking this this position that they're pushing this new world order, this reorganization of the world. And I guess he feels he gets to dominate here. So he's an authoritarian. He is an imperialist, and he's treating Canada that way, as sort of a colony or a satellite state of the United States. Because it's not only that, you see, we don't really have not good options for Canada right now, because as much as that pipeline, you're going to see it's going to ignite way more controversy as we move forward now. And I'll tell you why. Because the Americans aren't going to like it. Because that pipeline, if it's built, will supply Asia with oil. That's China. And they will buy it. They will buy lots of it, and it would be very good for Canada because it would provide access to another huge market, another huge consumer, and that means the United States will have to pay more for their oil. And that would benefit Alberta, and it would benefit Alberta immensely because you're going to have huge increase in volume in the amount of oil that is produced and sold. And even though the critics who don't really know how to handle this story, the anti-liberal or the conservative critics, who are saying, oh, it's an increase in the carbon tax. Yeah, but they're not telling you that the massive increase in volume is going to make Alberta incredibly wealthy. And it will benefit the rest of Canada as well. It's just a win-win-win all the way along if it happens. But you're going to see American influence injected in there to stop it, because it won't benefit the United States, and they do not want Canada to increase trade with China. They don't want the competition. They're not going to want this. That, I think, is honestly why, and this is my opinion, which I'm entitled to, I think that's why you're seeing the split in the conservative influencers. Because some are still kind of in Canada's camp or in Alberta's camp and keeping the country together camp, and the others are more pro-American for whatever reason, whether they're paid or just lean that way. That's why you're seeing them still criticizing the thing, and it's like they don't want it. They just don't want it. Well, they're telling you they want it, they don't want it. Why don't they want it? Because the Americans like the discounted oil they're getting right now. It's discounted for a couple of reasons. It's discounted because of some caps in Canada, but it's mostly discounted because you've only got one customer. So you've only got one place to sell it, so they demand it at a lower price. That's not good for Alberta. And yet these 51st staters think that they're going to be treated better by the United States if they separate So they're going to be treated better by the country that's buying all their oil at a price below market world value now. Okay. Politics is complicated, especially in Canada. It's just not that simple, man. And there's stuff going on behind the scenes that very few people really understand. I've been thinking about it a lot over the last day and the history behind all of this stuff and the way that the oil industry used to be organized in Canada. I was thinking back to the old days of like Supertest gas stations and the Supertest Oil Company, based in my hometown, London, Ontario, sort of the last of the really truly independent oil companies in Canada, which got swallowed up in the 70s through the consolidation period as the big multinationals came in and took things over. And there was, Petrofina, which then was nationalized and became Petro-Canada under Trudeau and the National Energy Program, which didn't sit well with people out in Alberta. And through it all, the one thing that wasn't really spoken about too much, but was absolutely a major factor in all of this, U.S. oil, U.S. interest. And that's what Trudeau Sr. was focused on, was making sure that Canada had energy. That was the goal of the National Energy Program, was energy self-sufficiency. Never fully realized in Canada because it's such a complicated place politically, because we have First Nations as nations within a nation and provinces. And that's what I wanted to mention for the other night, but I didn't really get into it. If you listen to Danielle Smith yesterday talking about Alberta's position and all this, she kept referring to Alberta's relationship with nations. That would be First Nations within Canada. And her use of that word was actually very important, because she's using it because she's also loosely or indirectly, softly leaning into that word, because that's what Alberta wants. They want to be recognized as a nation within a nation. If not the 51st state, then a nation within a nation, which is similar status to what, maybe the same status that First Nations have within Canada. I'm going to explore that further. I'm going to look at it deeper. But I think that's largely what it is, because it's about property rights. It's about UNDRIP. It's about First Nations. It's about Indigenous people. All those issues, not just oil, but oil at the center of it, because that's about money. That's about artificial intelligence as well. That's why they're looking at building AI centers in Alberta. That's why it wasn't just oil that was talked about in the Memorandum of Understanding. It was also nuclear power. Oil, nuclear power, energy to power AI. Should we be concerned about? Damn right. That's why Donald Trump is also still at least somewhat interested in what's going on in Ukraine, because of AI, critical minerals. They need not just the energy, but also critical minerals for computer chips and all things digital, all things computerized, moving into the future, into a digital future. The massive amounts of energy. That's why China wants all the energy too. It's an energy race as much as an arms race, because energy is everything now. If it wasn't already, energy becomes it's converted into digital information, digitized information. It's used to power AI. Imagine if you get jacked in and somehow our conscious selves become part of the AI ecosystem. Now suddenly it's life, it's self. Life becomes dependent on energy. It becomes finite in that way. Asimov is going to talk about that at the end of the program. Alberta's a key player in all of this. That's why I've been saying for a long time. I was saying it 3-4 years ago. Canada's in play, man. Canada is in play. Couldn't tell for a long time who it was. Who wants Canada? The United States and China and others, but especially China and the US competing for what Canada has. Can only go so far with China, though, because again, the United States will not allow us to go too deep into our relationship with a country like China, an adversary or viewed as an adversary. And that's the reality of living next door to a superpower. You can only do so much, go so far, as is the case with Ukraine. But that is also why what is happening in Ukraine definitely affects what our future will be here as Canadians. Because Russia knows this. This is why Putin will not give up. It's about the message that is sent to the rest of the world and certainly to Western countries. As Donald Trump pulls America out of Ukraine and withdraws support, leaves Ukraine hanging, it sends a message to the entire world that the United States is no longer what it was after World War II. It is no longer the keeper of peace. It is no longer the protector of the free world. It's only looking out for itself, and it can't be trusted. And if Ukraine falls, it sends a message to all the other NATO countries, all the other countries in the West. You're on your own. Or you can be together, but you don't have the U.S. to protect you anymore. You don't have the world's largest military as a security guarantee. Because even though you had the Budapest Memorandum in place as a security guarantee after Ukraine gave up its nuclear weapons, after the fall of the Berlin Wall, after we saw the Soviet Union dissolve, as we saw Ukraine emerge as a sovereign country, and allowed to, because the Soviet Union was falling apart, gave up its nukes, and the Budapest Memorandum was put into place saying that the United States and Russia both agreed they would never invade, that they would never violate Ukraine's sovereignty and its borders. But Russia has, and the United States was obligated to defend it because of the Budapest Memorandum, but really didn't. Just gave some support, showed that the paper that the Budapest Memorandum was written on wasn't worth it. Wasn't worth the paper it was written on. But worse than that, if Ukraine does fall, that's the message it sends to all these other countries, is that the U.S. is not going to be there, and it's already sending that message. As a result, you may still have NATO as an operating force or whatever, but it's essentially dissolved. That's how he breaks up NATO. That's how he breaks up the West. And that's the New World Order coming to life under Trump, Putin, and Xi Jinping, and maybe some others. It probably will emerge and develop into other little smaller blocks of power as well. But the only way that's really going to happen is if some of these other nations, like even Japan, Iran, they're going to want to get nukes. Now you've got an arms race. And this will, where these powers butt up against each other, and you get these powers meeting geopolitically, you're going to get conflict as these smaller nations try to survive in the face of this juggernaut that is rolling out politically and kinetically in Ukraine and maybe beyond, and in Venezuela and maybe beyond, as this rolls out, all these other smaller countries are looking for a way to survive, whether it's Colombia or Venezuela or Panama, which bent the knee and said, okay, China, you got to get out of here. The United States, we're going to bring them back in. They get to run the canal because Trump said, no, that's ours. China, you get the hell out of there. And that's the other thing that shows that what's going on down in Venezuela and in Latin America is disingenuous. It's not really, the drugs, that's a pretext. It may be justified to a point, but not to the point of just blowing up the boats. That's not right. And that's not American. That's just Trump MAGA. That's not the way the United States did it. And not to defend drug dealers, but you better be damn sure of what you're doing before you start blowing people up, especially if you haven't declared war. You're just going to kill people without a declaration of war. That's not freedom, because that ignores the rule of law, that ignores due process, that ignores people's rights completely. It just ignores the law. It's lawless. It is the law of the jungle. Now it becomes whoever has the most missiles and the most guns, that's who rules. I guess in a way it always was, except that we had allies. We had countries working together so that it wouldn't be that way, because we were all supposed to have some sway and some say as members of NATO, the UN, but especially NATO. Even though the United States was the biggest, they were Godzilla. They have been Godzilla. They're still Godzilla. And we were like, you be Godzilla. We'll be the little guys. We don't want too many nukes, too much of this. We don't want too many guns out here. International gun control, missile control. But as this world has changed, now we have a guy in the White House and people around him who are like, why should we take care of them? We're number one. We're the biggest. We don't want World War III, so we'll just make a deal with Russia and China, and you guys go do your thing. We're going to do ours. Alaska, that's still ours. Okay, no, maybe not. See, even there, there's still conflict. And that's going to heat up because the Arctic and passage through that part of the world, ships, that's becoming an integral trade route. So the conflict isn't going to end. It's actually just going to escalate. And this is disruptive. And God help Donald Trump and pray for his soul, because what he's approving, and Pete Hegseth too, what they're doing is just killing people because they've decided they can. That is not the United States that I thought I knew. Because I don't think it's the United States. It's Trump, MAGA. And all of this is putting the US, certainly Canada, right on the edge. And for what? This is not preventing anything. This is not preventing World War III. This is getting us closer to it. Definitely. I'll be back.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching. Maverick News. The world is watching.
All right, let's close this off here before we get into the Isaac Asimov stuff. I don't know, I've been talking a lot here, so we should let somebody from the past have a voice. Someone from the past talking about the future. But before we do that, I just wanted to bring this to your attention here. I hope you guys enjoyed the War of the Worlds broadcast last week. I thought it was a lot of fun. I can also tell you that I have compiled the soundtrack from the movie, and I'll talk more about that probably tomorrow, because it's 17 songs. That's how much work went into that. 17 songs in total for the soundtrack for the World of the Worlds broadcast a week ago. Not to mention all the post-production. That's why it took, how many months was I working on that? Over 2 months. It's incredible. Okay, so anyway, yeah, we all did the work here, and great job by everybody, and thank you for everybody that participated. It was so much fun, and I thought some of it was hilarious. Sandy, you have the greatest scream ever. You are a scream queen. And Joseph, you were awesome. Just your performance was second to none. And Ian, the dragon, you're the bravest Maverick correspondent ever. And thank you, everybody, for participating. And thanks, everybody, for watching, too. So the soundtrack will be available as a special thank you gift for people who donate. Again, but I have something kind of special in mind with that as well. I'll talk about that tomorrow, because I'm going to do a little bit more with that than just make the digital download available to people. There's a little extra. So there's that. But at the heart of it all, the broadcast was the 3-eye Atlas comet, UFO, interstellar object, whatever it is. And tonight we are seeing that it is making headlines again, because I guess it has sort of changed direction again. It's shifted its path. And I guess it's moving. What is it? It was involved in a flyby of Jupiter just outside a key gravitational boundary, but it's not doing what astronomers think it should be doing. And it's brighter than they thought it would be, and they're not really sure what this thing is made of. And they're saying that it's doing impossible things the way it's flying around out there, floating around, or whatever it is. We have a little bit of footage here of 3i Atlas tonight. So I'll bring that back to you. Here it is. This is what it looks like up there in the heavens. What is it? Is it just a comet? Or is it the arrival of aliens? Lots of talk, lots of speculation, many conspiracies. And even the term AI, I don't know that it means just artificial intelligence. I'm not sure that is accurate anymore, because some people say that it's alien intelligence. Maybe not alien in the sense of aliens from another world, but alien to us. And it is classified by some experts, futurists, scientists, and others as alien intelligence. AI. So when they're talking about, the arrival of aliens, and they're talking about aliens, I'm wondering, just wondering out loud, are they really just conditioning us for what is to come from AI, alien intelligence? Are they trying to tell us that maybe AI has been here with us longer than any of us knew? They're preparing us for something, or so it seems. Well, tonight on Maverick Midnight Matinee, we have 2 Isaac Asimov interviews to bring you. The first one we're going to show you will be Isaac Asimov, science fiction writer, futurist, talking about AI and what is posted online as his last interview. I don't know that that's really the case, but certainly near the end. And he says some pretty interesting stuff about AI. So not your typical movie night here. We're going to bring you Isaac Asimov himself in interviews talking about the future, because the future is now. Okay, let's get it rocking and rolling here. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll have to jump off. I need to end the broadcast on YouTube. Maverick Midnight Matinee will continue on all other Maverick News platforms. But if you are on YouTube, you'll need to jump over to Rumble or Twitter or one of the other platforms that we're broadcasting on tonight, Rumble being probably the best place to go. And so with that, here we go, ladies and gentlemen, with tonight's Maverick Midnight Matinee watch party for all you Maverick Midnight maniacs. We're back, and welcome to any new viewers that are out there, and to the people who are still with us here watching Maverick Midnight Matinee. Now, following the Maverick News broadcast tonight, Isaac Asimov. We're going to do another deep dive into the strange, the brilliant, and the just a little unsettling corners of our collective imagination. Because tonight we're doing something a little different, something special. We're stepping out of the world of fiction and into the mind of one of the greatest futurists who ever lived, Isaac Asimov. He wasn't just a science fiction writer. He was actually a builder of entire universes, a biochemist, a philosopher, and the man who turned robots from tin-canned boogeymen into something like our future neighbors. He wrote over 155 books, along with hundreds of magazine articles, shaped the way we talked about everything from artificial intelligence to human destiny, which ain't bad for a guy who said at one point that he preferred writing indoors with the curtains drawn. Well, tonight we'll revisit two interviews. One from the later years of his life, sometimes called his last interview, where he spoke openly about artificial intelligence, the coming age of machine reasoning, and humanity's uneasy partnership with its own creations. And, you know, back in the 70s when this interview took place, I was just a kid. So this was talk from a futurist who I was very well aware of, but it never really, it never really struck home that this would come to pass in my lifetime. It's just seemed like something so far out there that no, this wasn't going to happen in my lifetime. This was still science fiction, even though this was a futurist telling us that this would soon or eventually become science fact. So anyway, there's this interview, and then there's this one from 1975, an archival piece, Arc Identifier 54491, Cy Bergen interviewing a much younger Asimov. In this conversation, you're going to hear about the foundations of ideas that later shaped works like I, Robot. And we ran that teleplay a couple of weeks back, which showcased that, and that brings up profound questions and relates to everything we're talking about here. And you'll catch him in this interview predicting technologies that would eventually become part of, well, our smartphones, home assistants maybe, and the thing recommending this show to you right now, because I did a search online, Google, like recommend some interviews from Isaac Asimov, and then I got a search result back. So do you remember that? And do you remember the movie Fantastic Voyage? I haven't watched this whole thing yet, but I think there's a clip in here related to that as well. So anyway, let's not delay things any further. Let's start first with the short interview. This is supposed to be his last interview, talking about AI, and then we'll come back and we'll run the longer interview, this one's only a short video. I think it runs about 10 minutes or so. And then the next one's a little bit longer, but it'll be an abbreviated Maverick Midnight Matinee broadcast tonight with Isaac Asimov. All right, let's not delay any further. Here we go. Isaac Asimov on AI.